Home alone, but you're not really alone. Welcome to our channel. Today we delve into the dark and mysterious world of Home Alone horror stories. These are not for the faint of heart. We're about to explore the unsettling experiences of individuals who found themselves tormented by the unknown within the supposed sanctuary of their own homes. Lock your doors, turn on all the lights, and prepare to be disturbed as we uncover the chilling truth behind these terrifying accounts. These stories will leave you questioning the shadows in your own home. Are you ready to face the fear? Our first tale unfolds in a seemingly serene suburban home where a young woman named Sarah found herself tormented by a sinister presence whenever she was alone. It began subtly, a fleeting glimpse of something dark slithering at the edge of her vision. She brushed it off initially, blaming it on an overactive imagination. But as days bled into nights, the shadows grew bolder, more menacing. The hallway, once a mundane passage, transformed into a gauntlet of terror. Each time Sarah passed, she felt an icy breath on her neck, the sensation of being watched by something unseen. The air grew thick, charged with a malevolent energy. The silence, once comforting, was now shattered by the faintest of sounds, a creak, a groan, a whisper, just at the edge of her hearing. One evening, as Sarah sat reading in her living room, her back to the hallway, she saw it. A tall, shadowy figure, its edges blurred and indistinct, darted across the entrance of the hallway. Her heart pounded in her chest, her breath catching in her throat. Fear, raw and primal, washed over her. She told herself it was just a trick of the light, a figment of her imagination. But deep down, a chilling certainty settled in her bones. She was not alone. Nights turned into sleepless nights as the shadow grew more persistent, its appearances more frequent. The fear became a constant companion, gnawing at her sanity. Desperate for respite, Sarah tried everything, leaving the lights on, playing music, even burning sage. But the shadow remained, a sinister entity tethered to her home. She felt a constant sense of dread, a feeling that something malevolent was lurking just beyond her sight, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. One night as she lay in bed, her body rigid with terror, she heard a slow, dragging sound approaching her door. Her blood ran cold. The doorknob slowly turned, the sound agonizingly loud in the stillness of the night. She squeezed her eyes shut, her mind racing, her body paralyzed by fear. The door creaked open and the room seemed to grow colder. But there was no one there, only the heavy silence and the lingering sense of dread. Sarah never saw the shadow again, but the experience left an indelible mark on her psyche. To this day, she can't shake the feeling that something dark and unseen shared her home, watching her every move from the shadows. The hallway, once a symbol of normalcy, now serves as a chilling reminder of the unseen horrors that lurk in the corners of our world. Our next story takes us to a sprawling farmhouse miles from the nearest town, where a young man named David experienced a terrifying ordeal while house-sitting for his grandparents. The isolation of the farmhouse, once peaceful and serene, soon transformed into a breeding ground for fear. It began with a prickling sensation on the back of David's neck, as if someone was watching him. He brushed it off at first, attributing it to the unfamiliar surroundings. But the feeling persisted, growing stronger with each passing day. Strange occurrences began to plague him. Footsteps echoed in the empty hallway above, the distinct sound of someone pacing back and forth. Doors creaked open and slammed shut on their own, as if moved by an unseen hand. Objects went missing and reappeared in strange places, as if deliberately moved. David tried to rationalize the events, but the evidence was mounting, pointing towards a chilling conclusion. He was not alone. One evening, as David sat in the living room, a wave of unease washed over him. He felt a cold spot settle over him, the air growing thick and heavy. He slowly turned his head, his heart pounding in his chest, and saw it, a shadowy figure standing in the doorway, its features obscured by the darkness. He froze, his breath catching in his throat, his mind struggling to process what his eyes were seeing. The figure stood motionless for a moment, its gaze fixed on David before it vanished into thin air. Terror gripped him, sending chills down his spine. He knew then that he was dealing with something beyond his understanding, something sinister and malevolent. The once welcoming farmhouse had transformed into a prison of fear. Every creak of the floorboard, every rustle of the wind sent shivers down his spine. He felt a constant sense of dread, the terrifying certainty that he was being stalked by an unseen entity. Sleep became a distant memory, replaced by a state of heightened alertness. He would lie awake in bed, listening to every sound, his eyes scanning the darkness, bracing himself for the inevitable. One night, as he lay in bed, his body tense with fear, he heard a soft whisper coming from the corner of his room. It was a low, guttural sound, filled with malice and hate. He pulled the covers over his head, his heart pounding in his ears, desperately trying to block out the terrifying sound. But the whispering continued, growing louder, closer. David couldn't take it anymore. He bolted out of bed and ran out of the house, not stopping until he reached the safety of his car. He spent the rest of the night huddled in his car, too terrified to return to the farmhouse. David never went back to the farmhouse. The experience left him deeply shaken, haunted by the memory of the unseen watcher. He learned a valuable lesson that summer. Some places are best left undisturbed, for they harbour secrets best left hidden. Chapter 3. The Phantom Knocker. Our final story takes us to a dimly lit street in a bustling city where a young woman named Emily found herself tormented by an unseen visitor. It started innocently enough, a series of knocks on her front door, always late at night, always when she was alone. At first she assumed it was just a case of mistaken identity, late-night revelers stumbling home from a night out. But as the nights turned into weeks, the knocking continued. Always 3 sharp raps, followed by an eerie silence. Emily's curiosity turned to concern, then to full-blown fear. She checked with her neighbours, but no one had seen anyone lurking around her apartment. The police were no help either, dismissing it as a prank. But Emily knew better. There was something sinister about the timing of the knocks, the way the silence seemed to amplify the fear that was slowly consuming her. One night, as Emily lay in bed, her nerves on edge, she heard it. The familiar 3 knocks, sharp and insistent. She froze, her heart pounding in her chest, her mind racing. She slowly got out of bed and crept towards the door, her hand trembling as she reached for the handle. Taking a deep breath, she flung the door open, ready to confront her tormentor. But there was no one there, only the empty hallway and the lingering echo of fear. Emily's fear morphed into paranoia. She began to see shadows lurking at the edge of her vision, hear whispers in the dead of night. The once comforting solitude of her apartment had transformed into a suffocating prison of fear. She installed security cameras, reinforced her locks, but the phantom knocker remained undeterred. The knocks continued, each one chipping away at her sanity, taunting her with their impunity. One night, as Emily sat in her living room, her back to the wall, she heard the knocks again. This time they were louder, more insistent, as if demanding to be acknowledged. She couldn't take it anymore. She grabbed her phone and dialed 911, her voice trembling as she reported the relentless harassment. The operator tried to calm her down, but Emily could hear the skepticism in her voice. As she was on the phone with the operator, the knocking suddenly stopped. A cold dread washed over her. She slowly turned her head towards the front door, her heart pounding in her ears, and that's when she saw it. A note slipped under the door, the handwriting scrawled and menacing. It read simply, "You can't hide forever." Emily's blood ran cold. She was no longer dealing with a prankster, but something far more sinister. The police arrived minutes later, but the phantom knocker was gone, leaving behind only a lingering sense of dread and the chilling reminder that some terrors are all too real. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed these chilling tales, don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the bell icon for more spine-tingling stories. Stay safe and remember, sometimes it's better not to be alone. These stories serve as a chilling reminder that even in the supposed safety of our own homes, we are never truly alone. The next time you find yourself home alone, listen carefully to the sounds around you. Pay attention to the shadows that dance in the corners of your eyes. And remember, sometimes the things we can't see are far more terrifying than anything we can imagine. Sweet dreams.